That last chord is always the hardest. Thank you.
Thank you, David. So it's fun to watch people's pictures on Zoom because we're all doing the peppermint patty thing from the old Charlie Brown. Exactly, James has got it. So thank you for choosing to be with us today. We know you have a choice in this world of Zoom lands. So we're delighted that you chose to spend this hour with us. Now, I talk a lot about gratitude in November because it's November and we're supposed to, right? We're supposed to be grateful. But what is gratitude and how can we claim it before the good stuff happens? That's part of today's question that I set up with the title of the talk. In a recently revised article from Positive Psychology, the author defines gratitude as a positive emotional response that we perceive on giving or receiving a benefit from somebody. It looks like we either have to do a good deed for someone or feel like we're the recipient of a good deed to feel grateful. Is that true for you? Can you feel grateful for something that hasn't happened yet? Or for something that you're thinking about doing? One of the things I remember from, I don't know, probably early in the pandemic, it was a travel agent. And they talked about how anticipating the good of getting to go somewhere fun gave you all of the physiological benefit of actually going on the trip. And I think of gratitude the same way. When we plan to do something nice for someone, we get all of that positive feedback. So feeling grateful for the ability to do that, I think gives us that physical benefit. So we're partway there if we just imagine doing something for someone else. The benefits of a gratitude practice are many. Physically, practicing gratitude gives us a stronger immune system, fewer aches and pains, more optimal blood pressure and heart function, and better sleep cycles, better sleep and wake cycles. Psychologically, gratitude practices elevate our moods, increase our satisfaction with life, and help us pay more attention to our lives because we're always looking for evidence, things we can be grateful for. Socially, engaging in gratitude practices on purpose make us better communicators and better listeners and create stronger interpersonal relationships. People like us more and we will be more involved in the groups we belong to. So there are all these reasons that practicing gratitude is beneficial for us. But what about our physiology? What about our biology? Biochemically, expressing and experiencing gratitude is a natural antidepressant. Expressing gratitude releases dopamine and serotonin in our mind, in our brains. These are the two primary feel-good neurotransmitters that enhance our mood immediately and leave us feeling happy on the inside. Scientists have suggested that by activating this reward center, the act of experiencing and expressing gratitude alters the way we see the world and ourselves. By practicing gratitude regularly, we make stronger grooves, stronger neural pathways, and increase the likelihood that we will choose gratitude as our default way of seeing the world. That's important because there are so many opportunities to not pick that. So, what about feeling anxious or worried? Our brains are conditioned to repeat what they do most often. And a person who is always worried about difficult or hard or bad outcomes subconsciously wires their brain to look only for negative information. We can reverse that pattern. It takes repeated practice and not beating ourselves up when we fall into the old habits. There's also some interesting research on the relationship between resilience and gratitude. Looking for instances to experience gratitude or express it increase our ability to handle stress. Certainly, these days where the pandemic numbers are rising again and travel for the holidays is getting less and less likely, we can all use the positive support we can give ourselves by not feeling disheartened. Gratitude builds emotional resilience by helping us see the positive sides of life. Fighting off or eliminating or disavowing those negative thoughts and replacing pessimistic thoughts with optimistic ones by our choice. It also helps us stay grounded and not argue with what's happening in the moment, even if it's difficult. It allows us to focus on what's possible, and it helps us maintain good health by regulating our metabolic function and by keeping our hormones working in a balanced way, and also sustaining relationships and appreciating people who are there for us. And as a result, we automatically feel more loved, cared for, and hopeful. I'll put a link to this article in the newsletter so you can read it for yourself and see the recommended practices for gratitude and explore some of the additional links if you're interested. There are many good reasons why we should practice gratitude. Why don't we live there all the time? I know there are two reasons, and there probably are more. One, it's a long-standing culturally ingrained habit to look out for what's wrong. It's that caveman in the dark being afraid of tigers thing. And two, and was interesting to me, I hadn't thought about it before, we're afraid of having it too good, having life be too wonderful, because we're sure that if it's too good, then something bad must be fixing to happen. It's just going to come out of this, the side room and balance it out. Weird, right? But if you think about your life, there is this belief that's in cultural thinking that we can't have it too good. Something bad has to happen. The shoe has to drop. What is that? After her book, Daring Greatly, came out, Brene Brown was on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday talking about risks we humans take or are unwilling to take to fully experience joy in our lives. Brene described being on the plane on her way to be on Oprah's show, and she was so excited, she was giddy. The plane started down the runway, and then it had to turn around because something was wrong. Brene called a friend and said, I knew it, I knew it, I knew because I'm fixing to go meet Oprah, I'm gonna die. At my funeral, you better make sure somebody says she was gonna be on Super Soul Sunday. She continues in her conversation with Oprah, we try to dress rehearse tragedy so we can beat vulnerability to the punch. We tell ourselves that if we don't feel too good, then we can't feel too bad. But it doesn't actually work that way. We feel bad. We limit our access to the good. We limit our access to the joy. We keep ourselves from having that full, uplifting experience. Calling in the bad doesn't make the No, calling in the bad doesn't make the bad not happen. It makes it happen. And then we don't have that joyful experience because we've tamped it down. So, what's the workaround, she discovered? Instead of following that fearful thought, If we practice gratitude for the good we experience, lean into the joy, lean into the good, we have more of it. Brene said in her 12 years of researching joy, those who allowed joy into their lives always chose to be grateful instead of defaulting to that fearful thought, because that fearful thought doesn't protect us. It just limits our access to good. So I want you to think about that when you hear yourself say, "Oh, I can't enjoy that because." Stop yourself and realize you're in your own way of having your good. So I want to take you back to some of you, this will be an old story. For some of you, this will be new. The story of Thomas Troward's only in-person student, Genevieve Barrand. Her story is presented in her book, Your Invisible Power. I could easily talk about Genevieve for hours, but I won't, because she's fascinating and she's really cool and she figured out how to do this stuff and lived her life that way. But she was a young widow who wanted more out of life than just to entertain herself by traveling around on the money that her deceased husband left her. She was a seeker and she kept looking. And one day she stumbled onto a copy of Thomas Troward's Edinburgh Lectures. She opened it and started reading and thinking, oh, I'll just knock this out. It's not that long. But she realized it was that long because it was dense. And somebody had told her that the Dore lectures were easier. So she got a copy of those. After studying both for several months, she decided this was what she was seeking. And she memorized a paragraph from the Dore lectures and decided to commit it to regular practice. What was that paragraph? My mind is a center of divine operation. The divine operation is always for expansion and fuller expression. This means the production of something beyond what has gone before, something entirely new, not included in past experience, though proceeding out of it in an orderly sequence of growth. She realized that meditating on these words brought her feelings of peace and joy, contentment, enjoyment. And she decided that she wanted to study with Judge Troward, who had never taken a student. She wrote him. She lived in the States. He lived in England. She said, hi, I want to come study with you. He said, no. But he said she could keep writing if she wanted. So she wrote him back again and again and again and again. And every time she wrote, she asked if she could study with him. And every time he was very polite, very kind. And he said no. She was convinced that somehow he would change his mind. She had embodied those words. My life is a center of divine operation, and divine operation wants to express through me, and it wants to express joy. It wants to express life. It wants to express good. So that's where she was. She was convinced somehow he would change his mind. Her first difficulty was that she didn't have enough money to travel from the States to England and live there for several months. I love this story. She started visualizing, imagining every single day, twice a day, counting out $20,000 bills into her hands. This is 1914. She visualized this twice a day. The feel of the bills, what they looked like, what they felt like, what they smelled like. She imagined and felt what it felt like to buy a ticket on the steamer ship that would take her to England. She felt the joy of standing at the railing of the ship as it left the harbor. She imagined, she felt the joyful experience of Troward saying yes to her in person as she stood on her doorstep. She practiced this twice a day, just as clearly as she could manage. And because she was clear, she had no resistance. She had nothing that would get in the way of her having this experience. And one day, she was walking down the street, not really thinking a whole lot about it, but her subconscious was always working on it. She actually felt her visualization come to life within her. She wrote, "My mind accepted this idea, and immediately all the tension of mind and body relaxed. It was a feeling of absolute certainty of being in touch with all the power life has to give. All thought of money, teacher, and even my own personality vanished in this great wave of joy that swept my entire being. Everything glowed with light." Her experience of gratitude shifted the energy of the visualization. She accepted it as though it were true before it happened. She allowed that feeling of gratitude to fill her up and to make space to allow this manifestation to happen. The money showed up. Every single person who's read this book since 1915 has wanted to know how. She wrote that the how was unimportant and told us that it took her 6 weeks of dedicated practice. That's all, 6 weeks. To hold that thought of something that's so desirable, so much acclaiming of life, to hold it that thoroughly and to be able to feel it land is all it took. Gratitude that becomes embodied becomes real. So I want to close with a couple of statements from gratefulness.org, which I will also put the link in the newsletter so you can follow it yourself. Reflect on the goodness and generosity of others. Gratefully reflect on the sacrifices of everyone who has supported us during this quarantine period. Anyone working overtime to do research, anyone studying or making tests and vaccines, anyone giving us accurate and timely information. Notice all the ways people care for their fellow human beings and feel grateful. Recognize their generosity and feel grateful. 2, this one's funny to me. Wash your hands. Lather up with 20 seconds. Slow down to experience gratitude for the gift of hot and cold running water, the miracle of soap, the miracle of learning we can get rid of germs, the wonder of our hands. Consider washing your hands a sacred ritual, welcoming the opportunity to meditate on these blessings. 3, stay connected. Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, phone, text, email, even snail mail with family, friends, neighbors, acquaintances, people that are important to you. How does it feel to reflect with gratitude on the relationships in our lives and let people know we care about them? Keep in touch and connect in all the ways you can. Here's a rubber meets the road one. Number 4, be generous and compassionate. Recognize that everybody's having a hard time. People are overwhelmed. They're unhappy. Life doesn't work like they expect, and they don't know what to do about it. You do. Be more patient, more kind. Take a breath before responding to somebody who's being a toad. Offer smiles and gratitude freely. Support others, all kinds of others. Number 5, see the privileges of the ordinary. Instead of focusing on how much we've lost, notice what remains. There are so many blessings. Allow yourself to appreciate and be in awe of what's available to you: phones, showers, electricity, the beauty and resilience of the natural world, all the parts of your body that do work, all the services and systems, internal and external, that serve your ability to function, and so much more than that. And then the last one, commit to practices that sustain you. Stay grounded in the things that you can do that preserve your integrity and reinforce the beliefs that help you have faith in difficult times. Maintain or increase your personal rituals, traditions, reminders, and practices that help you remain calm, centered, and in gratitude. So, lastly, a poem by Lynn Unger called Pandemic. What if you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of times? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling. Give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are all connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in each other's hands. Surely that has become clear. Don't reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your mind. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly in ways we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or worse, in sickness, in health, for long as we both shall live. It's not a small thing. In fact, it's a great big huge thing. And it's something each and every one of us can do, can remember, can practice. Gratefulness, care, compassion, kindness, love. Do that. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So I want to slide on into our prayer, affirmative prayer. As we see the good, we see gratefully those things that are available for us to do in our skill set, in our ability, in our way of being. Hold that idea in your mind while I speak the words. I live in this space of wholeness, in this space of the one mind, that whole and holy presence that lives, moves, and has its being in all life, all peace, all joy, all love, shows up as power and harmony, shows up as abundant good. And I know this goodness shows up as each individual who chooses to live in that way, who chooses to let this goodness live in them, as them, flow through them, and express. And I know that every time I release this goodness to the world, I get back 100-fold. And I know this is true for every single individual as much as it's true for me. Each one lives in this space of opportunity and possibility, being able to make this world a brighter, saner, more loving place through this practice of gratitude, through this practice of generosity, through this practice of being loving and kind. So I remember this opportunity, I remember this practice, I remember this ability that each one shares to live in this space of love and radiate it to the world. Enjoy and delight for this opportunity to gather in this way and practice and remember. I bless this practice. I bless all who have joined me today in this adventure. I allow, I release, and I let it be. And so it is.
And so it is.